Hello everyone. In this chapter we're going to talk about laptop computers and other portable devices. We're going to look at the options for expansion in laptops. We're going to talk about how to take a laptop apart, specifically what parts are and are not serviceable. We'll talk about hardware device replacement and the pros and cons of purchasing an entire machine from one place versus putting your own together. We'll also talk about laptop displays, some laptop features, and some things you can do for diagnostics on portable and laptop machines. So in thinking about a laptop, the display is normally an LCD. The keyboard and the mouse are usually built in. Most machines now have a touchpad at the bottom. You will still find some that have the pointer device that looks like an eraser between a couple of the keys. I feel kind of lucky. I have a Dell that has both of those, so I can use either. You will find that laptops will have a battery. The battery normally will keep the machine running for a certain amount of time, but it's going to be time limited. And how long you can get out of that battery determines a lot based on what you're doing with it and what kind of components are in that machine. Most will have some sort of expansion bus. Most are going to have lots of USB ports now, but they're also going to have one proprietary port that you can put it on a docking station with. And normally those docking stations have a monitor and an external keyboard and mouse, and in most cases the docking station will charge the machine as well. Laptops generally come with small form factor hard drives, usually a 1.8-inch hard drive or a 2.5-inch hard drive. It may have a PC card slot or a card reader. If it's an old laptop, it may have an express card slot. There may be a floppy drive. It's very doubtful. With an older machine, you may find some that have a floppy drive that can be taken out and replaced with an optical drive, or an optical drive that can be taken out and replaced with a floppy drive. As far as expansion, most laptops only have 2 memory slots, and those use the small memory instead of large. We'll talk about that. CPUs in laptops are generally not upgradable, and the video card is generally not upgradable as well because those are integrated parts. So some of the options for expansion are PCMCIA. These are hot swappable, but only old laptops really have those. Express cards, the same thing, really only older machines have them. Most have upgradable memory, however, and the laptop memory is just like memory that's in a computer. It's going to be SODIMMs or small DRAM, DDR RAM, and based on what type of machine, you'll either have 2 slots for memory, both can be upgraded, or some laptops have 1 slot that's internal and then only 1 external that can be upgraded. USB has taken over PCMCIA and express cards. Almost all new machines are going to have USB, and everything that you're going to add to it is going to be via USB. And you may have one that has a flash memory card reader so that you can take the memory out of your camera and put it directly in your machine, your laptop to read. So there were 3 general types of PCMCIA cards. A type 1, which is 3.3 milliliters thick and was used mainly for memory. Type 1 is pretty much obsolete. Type 2, which is 5.5 millimeters, was used for wireless networking. You may have a hard drive at that size. They are mainly for older I/O ports. And these ports would have something called a dongle on them. And a dongle is basically just what plugs in to the card itself and comes out to plug into the device. For example, if you added a PCMCIA network card, there would be a dongle that would run into the actual Ethernet port. Here's an example of what a dongle would look like. This is one for a 3Com network card. As you can see, these are just really not used anymore, but this one's for $9. This end would plug into the device, into the PCMCIA device, and the other end would go into the network in this case. The purpose of these is because the card is too thin for the network to actually plug into the card. And finally, Type 3. And a Type 3 slot is larger and was used for combo I/O ports, hard drives. You may find some modems that were Type 3. Now, the idea behind PCMCIA Type 2 and 3 was very good. It's just that USB took over all of it. And if your machine has a Type 3 port, that Type 3 port is exactly 2 Type 2 ports. So if you have one Type 3 slot, what you actually have is 2 Type 2 device slots. Here they're showing an example of a PCMCIA card. Most laptops that had these would have this eject button that you would push to eject the card. And here we're looking at express cards. Express cards are all a little bit different in size based off of what they were. The 34 and 54 is for the size, 34 millimeters or 54 millimeters. And these can communicate directly with the PCI Express or USB subsystem. These are faster than PCMCIA. They say compatible with USB 2.0, but here again what's happened is USB 3 is faster than either of these. And if it's a USB 3 device, you have the ability of adding it to a machine or to a laptop, a desktop or laptop. Not to mention, it's very much easily to move around. You don't find desktop machines with card bus ports on them. So more and more devices have gone to USB for that reason. Here we're looking at typical memory inside of a laptop. We have normal DDR shown here at the top, and down at the bottom we have SODIMM, which is a small version of memory. Again, everything in a machine, a laptop takes up less space. It's more compact. So you have smaller memory. Generally, laptop memory is a little bit more expensive, but what we're seeing now is that it's not tremendously more expensive than memory for a desktop. The biggest thing with a laptop is that normally they only have 2 slots, where you may have a desktop that has 4, 6, 8, or even more. So the important thing in upgrading a laptop's memory is that you can usually only buy one external, or you have to buy them in pairs. If you want 16 gigs of memory in your laptop, for example, you're going to need to buy 2 8 gig SODIMMs. Putting memory in a laptop is a little bit trickier than adding it to a desktop, because the memory has to be put in at an angle and then pushed down flat. Most laptops have got a port on the bottom that you will unscrew a screw in. Then you slide the memory into the port and lock it down into place. Once it's locked down, you can cover it back up with the part of the case that goes there. So when you are disassembling a laptop, it's important, because they're made very small, that you identify the screw types, the screw lengths, and the number of screws. Different laptops will have different screws in different places. It's not uncommon for there to be 4 or 5 different sizes of screws in the bottom of a laptop. So one thing you may wish to do is take a sheet of paper and make notes of where the screws were, maybe even make piles and say, these are all the screws that came out of the bottom of the case. These are the screws that were holding in the hard drive. That way, when you go to put it back together, since you're going to have different sizes, you will be able to put them in the right place. They make an organization tip here that I think is a great one. Use an egg crate. If you don't have an egg crate, I would suggest, if you're really going to end up taking lots of machines apart, go to Walmart and buy you a small tackle box. That'll have several different sections in it that you can put screws for different things in it. You can even number those sections, those bins, and then on your notes write note 1. Bin 1 are the screws that came out of this place. Bin 2 are the screws that came out of this place. That way, when you go to put it back together, you'll have everything to do it. You're also going to need small screwdrivers for a laptop. This is where the jeweler's toolkit that we talked about earlier comes in, because the screws are so much smaller. So in replacing parts, lots of parts, because it is a laptop, are going to be integrated. The touchpad's going to be integrated. The wireless is probably going to be integrated, so are the speakers. Unlike a desktop, most of the components in a laptop are proprietary. What I mean by that is if you've purchased a Dell laptop, you're not going to be able to put an HP wireless in it. You're going to need a Dell, and you're going to need specifically the one made for that model computer. These things are so small that they have to put things where they'll fit. If you have a Dell Dimension laptop, for example, the wireless is in a completely different place than if you have an Alienware or an Inspiron. The other thing you're going to need is you may have a proprietary screw to open the case. And that doesn't mean that you can't get to it, but you need to make sure and read your warranty and see if it's okay for you to open the case. If the machine's out of warranty and you're going to open it, if it is a special screw, Radio Shack can be your friend. They usually have the screwdrivers that are needed for certain things, or you'll be able to order it from there. What you see a lot of times are small hex or star screws on the bottom of some of these, and that's meant for you to not open it. But if it's out of warranty, get what you need and open it and see what you can do. The keyboard is something you can replace. You can even replace the display, but generally you have to have these from the original manufacturer. Optical hard drives and hard drives, or memory on the other hand, are not generally proprietary. Memory for laptops is standardized. If it's a SODIMM that will fit and the motherboard will support the size, it's generally going to work. The battery is something that you might replace. In fact, I'd say that's probably the most commonly replaced thing is the battery and then the AC power brick. If you're going to replace the AC power brick, you may want to get the one from your manufacturer, but they make universal ones that you can purchase at places like Best Buy that will often run your machine. Generally, batteries are proprietary, but you can find generic batteries if you look around on the internet. There are sites like Batteries Plus that you can put in your model and they'll tell you what battery to get for it. So here we're just looking at a laptop. Here you see the Wi-Fi antennas are on the corner. This one has a webcam. The microphone's next to it. These will vary from machine to machine. So this is just to give you an idea of where things are, but they may not be in the same place on your particular machine. Your display for the video on a small device like this is either going to be LCD or LED. LEDs provide brighter picture and they are less power hungry than LCDs. If it's a small device, you may have an OLED. These are generally your touch screens that are found on phones. And most laptops are going to have the capability of hooking them up to an external display. So you can plug a laptop into a projector or into an actual computer. You can also plug a keyboard into it. And to turn on those external USB, VGA or DVI, normally there's a keyboard command that you'll push. With lots of laptops, because the keyboards are made a little smaller, you'll push a key that has FN on it, which stands for function. You push that, and then one of the function keys will have a little picture of a monitor on it, and that'll move back and forth between the actual display on the laptop and an external. Here, very much like on a desktop, you just see the screen where they're showing a couple of monitors, and you can have both on or one or the other. Here, they're showing how to set the display. The display becomes important because sometimes if you have a laptop that's a wider screen and you're hooking it to a monitor that's a standard screen, you may need to change the displays in order for everything to view properly. I have a laptop with a wide screen, for example, but if I connect it to the projector in the lab to show the class something, if I set it to mirrored mode so I can see it as well as on the display, what will happen is I'll actually have black bars on both sides of my screen on my actual laptop, and the reason for that is I have to adjust the resolution in mirrored mode so that both match. So if your display is cracked on your laptop, you have to replace the entire screen. And they want to point out here that because machines are so much cheaper now, it may be cheaper to just buy a new computer than actually to even replace the screen. Most screens have to come from the vendor, and you're going to find that you're going to spend $400 or $500 on a screen when you might just be able to buy a laptop for $500 or $600. You can use an external monitor if you've cracked the video, but you think you've still got, the video card is still working. If you've got a monitor, you can plug it in and use it that way. If an external monitor works but the LCD just fails, you can check the connection between the motherboard and the LCD. Normally that is soldered on, but it might come loose. And then sometimes older laptop screens especially will get dead pixels, and that's a pixel that doesn't change color. You can occasionally tap the screen over a dead pixel and make it make a connection, and that may or may not work. My advice is if you have a laptop under warranty and you see a dead pixel, go ahead and get that replaced, because one dead pixel is a sign that your monitor could be going out and you may have more dead pixels. So laptops will have a couple of different types of input. A stylus or a digitizer may be one. The function keys we talked about earlier, the FN plus the F key, that will do specific things on a laptop. Their example here is that on Dell, function F3 brings up the display for the battery. You may have a touchpad. And in many cases, lots of people who are road warriors that are not fans of touchpads may carry a mouse around with them. You can set your laptop so that it disables the touchpad when you plug a mouse in. And then some have that pointing stick, and that's a little joystick in the middle of the keyboard. All right, so input problems that happen. If you're having trouble with a stylus or a digitizer, check for loose connections. If you're having trouble with your keyboard, try a different application. Try plugging in a USB and see if it's actually a problem with your keyboard if you're having some other problem. One other thing you might do is reboot the machine. In general, this is the primary rule with anything Windows. If you're having a weird problem, chances are, if it's just software, a reboot's going to take care of it. If you're having problems with your track mouse, then you may either reboot or again try plugging in something USB and see if that works. Here are some of the settings you can set on a trackpad. Again, you can change the left and the right buttons like we talked about in the previous chapters with a regular mouse. You can also change the speed of a double click. So here is an example of a port replicator or a docking station. And you see here number 11 is the adapter that plugs into the actual computer. And then this device has got 4 USB ports. It's got a network port, it looks like. It's got a video port. So this would give you all of these ports out of that one port on the computer. So in thinking about power sources, your laptop is probably going to have an AC adapter that comes with it. You may find that it comes with a 12 volt. Some have specific power supplies that can be plugged in on airplanes. And your laptop's going to have some sort of onboard battery. If it's got a lithium-ion battery, that is the most efficient and the lightest battery. The higher milliamp rating, the better the runtime you're going to get. It may have a nickel metal hydride battery, which was a replacement for the oldest type, the nickel cadmium batteries. NiCad batteries are still used on the CMOS battery in some models of motherboards. The small battery we talked about that keeps the settings in the CMOS is usually a nickel cadmium battery. So because a laptop is small and has a battery, there are lots of power features to make that battery last longer. One of those that laptops use quite often is called power throttling. And what that means is that the CPU will slow down based on what applications you're running. If you're playing a game, it may be running full speed, but if you're just typing in Word, you don't need a lot of processing, so it'll throttle that down. The slower the processor runs, the less power it takes to run it, therefore the longer the battery life. Another thing you can do is have devices go to sleep when they're idle. And then finally we have ACPI, which stands for Advanced Power Configuration Interface. Older machines called that APM. But this allows Windows to manage your power usage. This allows you to turn things on and off to tell your computer to go to standby mode after a certain amount of time. You can turn hibernate on or off, but Windows will automatically hibernate when the battery gets to a certain low point. You can also set alarms. Windows has some default ones. When you get down to 10%, it's going to start warning you. It's going to say it's low. When you get down to about 6 or 5, it's going to say critically low. And at that point, it's going to hibernate whether you want it to or not. So there are different power modes. S0 is full blown and S5 is completely turned off. S1 is a power on standby mode. At this level, the computer is on, but it's reduced in power. Power is applied to the CPU and the RAM, but the device is not needed, such as the hard drive or whatever may be powered down. In S2 mode, everything that happens in S1 is going on, but the CPU is also powered off. In S3 mode, this is called sleep mode. S3, your RAM is still powered. But it's called suspend on some machines. Your computer is using the less amount of memory as possible here and still be running. S3 is the default if you just close your laptop and pick it up and take it somewhere. You'll notice your power button on most laptops is set where it will flicker on and off at this setting. And what that means is the computer's using just enough power to keep everything running, but it's in a state where it's not being used. The processor, the hard drive, all of those devices are down. It's providing just enough memory to the RAM to keep the data in the RAM. Hibernate mode, or S4, is where the RAM is saved to a hard drive. This creates a file called hyberfill.sys if you're talking about Windows. And everything that's in memory is written to that. And then the power of the machine is completely turned off. It takes a little bit more time from S4 to boot up than it does from S3. Because that memory has to be read back off of the hard drive when the machine's turned back on. But this occurs automatically when you get to a low state of power. What happens is your laptop, especially if you're running Windows and you don't turn this off, you reach a low point and it says, I'm about to die. So it writes the computer to the memory as is. Then as soon as you plug it in, you can boot it back up and it will resume from where you're at. So everything in the memory will be read back off of the hard drive and the computer will go back to exactly where it was. Here we're showing that you can set these. You can set times on computers for plugged in versus running on batteries. For example, here they're showing that after 15 minutes of plugged in, they want to turn off the monitor. But on the battery, since that's using battery, they want that to 5 minutes. You can also say when I push the power button what I want it to do. Do I want it to hibernate, turn off, or go to standby? Or when I close the lid. So troubleshooting laptops with power issues, the first thing if you don't have any power, are you plugged in? Because a laptop has a battery, you might not have power to the plug you've plugged into, or you might not have a cable plugged in well and not know that. So check the output with a voltmeter. If the battery's not charging, is the battery simply too old to hold a charge? Most laptops will boot up without a battery. They'll just act like a standard desktop. You won't have any sort of power management, or if the power gets removed, it's just going to go off. It's common that batteries, after they've been charged so many times, will hold a charge for a brief amount of time. And if that's the case, what you need to do is just replace the battery. Here they're giving an example of some security for a laptop. This is a physical device that you can put on a laptop that will bolt it down to a desk. And the reason these are important is because laptops are so small, they're easier to take off with than a desktop would be. You might also want to consider logical security. What happens if the machine is actually stolen? And a suggestion that I'll make is that with a laptop, you should really look at encrypting the hard drive, specifically whole drive encryption. And the reason you want to do something like that is even if somebody physically steals the machine, at least they won't get your data. At least if you put good solid encryption on your hard drive, should they steal it, they won't be able to do anything with it. So other types of connections that laptops may have, it's not uncommon to find laptops that have cellular connections. These are built into lots of laptops now, and companies like Sprint and Verizon will get with different laptop manufacturers, and they'll try to bring you into using that by giving you like a free month or something along those lines. What this does is allows you to use your computer even when you're not in a wireless network range, you'll have connectivity. And most of those are data plans, so they come with certain limitations you have to watch. Ethernet, they say, uses an RJ45. You should check. Most laptops are going to have wired and wireless. They say that it's an option here, but I have not seen a laptop built in the last 3 or 4 years or more that doesn't have at least some type of wireless on it. Most are going to have these cards that support multiple wireless now, like A, B, G, and N cards. You may have a modem in a laptop, but they're not as common anymore because Ethernet is kind of replacing that. We all have instant-on internet connections now. And Bluetooth finally may be an option, and with Bluetooth you can connect to a wireless keyboard or mouse. If your computer doesn't have cellular WAN, but you have the support for it on your phone, you might do a Bluetooth PAN or personal access network to use your phone's connection to the cell network to get your computer on the network. So some problems, if you're having Wi-Fi problems, check the signal strength. Check for the presence of Wi-Fi networks. Make sure your Wi-Fi adapter is enabled on your laptop. Some laptops have a switch. For example, on the Dell laptops that I've worked with, there's a small switch on the side, and if it's flipped over to red, the wireless is turned completely off. So you may be working with it trying to figure out why on earth wireless isn't working, but that switch has just gotten jarred a little bit in your bag. You'll have to switch it back. With the Alienware laptops, on the other hand, it's a function key, and I believe it's F8. If you've turned that off, the wireless icon will be dark instead of blue, so it's turned off. You got to hit function F8 to turn it back on. Same thing with Bluetooth. There's going to be a function key to enable or disable it. Make sure that it's on. The reason for those disable capabilities is that up until recently, the rules for flight were that you had to have your device, no matter whether it was a phone or a laptop, in airplane mode, where none of the communication was taking place. So you had to have everything off in order to use it on a plane. Much like desktops, there are preventative things you can do for a laptop. When you take your laptop apart, I would take it outside and spray everything down with air. Make sure those air intakes are clean. Because laptops are even smaller and things are put together more in them than they are in desktops, it's especially important you keep it cool. Don't run your your laptop in an area where it's too hot. They say temperature range from 50 to 95. In truth, the only problem with running it in a colder area is condensation. So if you move it from a cold to a warm area, you might want to leave it off for a little while to make sure that there is no condensation. Another thing, because they are small, if you smoke around your laptop or if it's dusty, that can build up in there. And if you live on the coast, salty air can cause problems. If you're going to store a laptop or a desktop for a long period of time, you should take the CMOS battery out to prevent battery leakage. So in this chapter, we talked a little bit about laptops and some of the best practices. We talked about if you're going to take a laptop apart, be sure to make notes of where all the screws go. You can replace the screen in a laptop, but it's usually pretty difficult to do, and in some cases it's more expensive than just buying a new machine. And we talked about some of the things you can do if you're having trouble with some of your laptops. Thanks for watching.